Hello and welcome to another Lord of the Rings Rise to War video. I'm the player who plays as the King Under the Mountain, and today I'm going to continue this series of videos that I'm doing in regards to the changes to the meta and the changes to commanders post the 2.5, 2.2, 2.37, whatever point of the update you want to call it, post 25th of September, where they changed some skills and things with commanders, just to talk through whether certain people are still in the meta, whether they've improved, whether they haven't. We're going to go through some equipments, probably talk loosely about best in-slot items, but we'll also give some theories, because I like to see this not necessarily as a guide, but as a discussion, is kind of how I'm trying to portray it. And we're going to talk through what kind of formations he can work in, what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are, how he interacts with his own formation, how he interacts with troops. Those kind of things, really, and probably talk about his relic, talk about his outfit, because I quite like going into the outfits every now and again. Talk about what respect level you need for him, potential builds, all that kind of good stuff, and things that you probably need to think of while you're running through. So with that, we'll probably get straight into the fact that it is Gimli that we're looking at today, and he is ultimately a dwarf, so instantly becomes one of my favourite characters just for being a dwarf. But realistically, he is also from the Lord of the Rings, and particularly from the films, I'd guess, more than anything else, one of people's most sort of charming characters that they enjoy so much, and he does some cool stuff and in the film. So it's nice to see that in this game that they have carried on the fact that he was great in the films, and he's also very, very, very good in 1.0 and as well in 2.0 and 2.5. But that's kind of an end to this video at the start, so there we go. So as usual with this, we're going to start with the build and go through the skills. So his first Respect 0 skill is actually one of the better Respect 0 skills that you'll see for damage. So it is Experienced Warrior, and it's a tree that he used to have before. So every 2 rounds you deal 200% physical damage to 2 enemy formations. This is quite cool, very similar to the Shadow skill. So at level 5 plus 6 attack, upon dealing this damage up to 5 stacks. I think it's quite nice that this is part of another tree rather than in the Shadows version of a separate tree. So that's basically, when it's maxed, you're looking at another 30 attack, which again is pretty good, really. On top of it, particularly with the Sauron meta, we'll talk about how that interacts at some stage. Further down, level 10, you get plus 5 attack, which is not to be sniffed at again also. So kind of a bit of a meh level 10 skill, but it's alright. You then have Lockbearer as his other R0 skill, and maxed out you have defense of 3 enemy formations 1 to 10. That is a minus figure, so you are taking roughly 10 defense from the enemy, which isn't a great deal, to be perfectly honest. This is probably his worst tree by a country mile, but it still has some benefits. So at level 5, your damage dealt to melee units, which I'll be interested to see how it comes out in the meta, but we can talk that through down the line, I suppose, when we go into the critique of him. Plus 6%, which is also pretty handy. You also get some more commander attack. It's only plus 5. This is his weakest skill tree. We're going to go straight over to the R4 tree at this point, and I still find it hard to say R4. This is the Lord of the Glittering Cave skill, and it happens every 2 rounds, very similar to Experienced Warrior. Slightly more damage to 2 enemy formations. The level 5 skill's a little bit meh, I guess, as far as it goes. So healing effects received by a target minus 50% for 2 rounds, with healing not being a massive thing in the game. Unless, I guess, some people are starting to use Surdon now, so I don't know, maybe something like that, or a Radagast, I guess. And then level 10, which again isn't the most fantastic of skills, target defense minus 5 for 2 rounds. It's nice to have some negative defense, but really and truthfully, you're not touching the side so much with that negative sense. It's very incremental and very small. His main damage skill is Durin's Blood, which to me is the best damage dealing skill in the game as a singular damage skill. So this deals 700% damage to 1 to 2 formations. It's really nice when it hits 2, and it is physical damage. In addition, your skill damage dealt plus 10% for 3 rounds, and at level 10 you get a little bit more commander attack. What I will say, obviously this is an every 3 round skill. what I will say is that his entire kit does help him as a commander. There might be a couple of titles that are a little bit meh. Let's remember he is a tier 2 commander, so he's a little bit cheaper as well. So for me, if you've got him at respect 4, you're gonna, and skill order is actually very important with these dwarves. So you will go Durin's Blood first and max this out to 10. I would then put 4 points in Lord of the Glittering Caves, and I would put 10 points in Experienced Warrior. That is how I would set myself out at respect 4, and then basically just fill this tree right the way up to respect 10, like so. If you ascend him and want to get his relic, happy days. You can just continue to pump points into Lot Bearer for forevermore. It gets expensive though, really, for what you're trying to get. This is a nice little addition, but it's you know, not necessarily necessary. So very playable at respect 10. And if ascended, which you can now do, he's one of the commanders that you can actually do great things with for ascension. So I did this to get him up to the level that I'm at. So let's talk ascension while we're here. Obviously ascension is when you do this, but he was one of the commanders that it works really well on because he uses specific items. So while we are in this exchange event, you can use one of these ascension vouchers here, and you can pull a load of vouchers out of himself for himself. So have I not done this already? I feel like I've done this already. If I haven't, I should probably do this and get him to Zenith. So basically what I can do is I can use 40 coins here, 40 items here, whichever the random ones are. I can use 100 random items here, and I get out of it 100 of these items, which I can then use to upgrade his respect afterwards. And I get 40 Dane coins. So he's a great way of getting your Dane leveled up as well, just a little bit. I have done a video on that, so I won't touch on it too much, because otherwise this will be about 4 hours long, and nobody wants that. However, the likelihood is I will probably use 100 random items and get 100 Gimli items later on. So I thought I'd already done that, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, back to Gimli. So once you've ascended him, you can unlock this relic, this beautiful, beautiful axe called Balin's Axe. I've always kind of thought, really, as Balin is technically alive in this game, he should probably get his own axe back. But I don't know. I'm not going to complain because of some skills. So as far as it goes for his actual strengthening, there's not really a great deal that you want from this. A little bit of HP is nice, but the commander attack +6 is really what you're after if you're going to be sort of trying to strengthen it. So you've got 1 in 4 chance, which isn't great in comparison to most other relics. However, the sub-skill of Durin's Focus is incredible. So if we go to the Refine, where did I press the other day where I can then do the full refine? Here we go. So this is in sequence. If your attack reaches 50, you get damage dealt +6%, which is pretty spicy, to be fair. And then when your attack reaches 100, now this is a physical damage dealer, so every single time you're going to get him over 100 pretty much. Even if you're in full perps, you're going to get over 100 attack. So you're getting +12% damage when it's fully refined, which is massive. And then Focus reaches 50, gains Keen Eye. Now, Keen Eye is one of the skills which has now become very, very meta. So to have this on his unique for 10 Mithril, which is all it now costs, is pretty incredible. So even at base value, you're still getting +2% damage, which is not to be sniffed at. But this Keen Eye skill here is incredible, and it ignores target's evasion. Now, 2 reasons really that you're seeing people running around and why that's such an incredible skill. So in the first 2 rounds of a fight, most people currently in the meta are running a Gandalf the White, particularly in NRP this is. So let's focus NRP to start with. They're running Gandalf the White, Sauron, Dane on his own as a damage dealer, and they are running... Why am I forgetting this information? I've literally forgot who it is. The sort of old meta would you'd then have Bjorn in that formation as well. However, people are running another support comp, which is literally just... Oh, of course, Gil. Of course I'm going to forget the elf. So... people are running a Dane, a Gandalf the White, a Sauron, and a Gil. No wonder I forgot the elf, of course. And in roleplay, if you're facing good side, you're likely to run into the same problems, where you're going to run into a kind of a Bjorn, Dane, Gandalf the White, Gil formation. And in NRP, there's still a different chance, or even in roleplay, to be honest, you may run into, if you're facing Evil, wherever he is down here. I need to do a video on him still, and I haven't done it yet. That's not him. Where is the Undying? No, there we go. Different Nazgul. So, the Undying. So, the Undying also has the skill called Undead Commander, which is evade for those 90% for the first 4 or 5 hits in this case, for 3 formations. So that's a good evade skill. And then the other one, which is the more meta version in my opinion at the moment, is people are using Gil and Kingly Kin. So for the first 2 rounds, alpha units in 3 allied formations have a 60, but actually at level 10 it's 70% chance to evade and get some increased defense. Now, what Gimli's unique does, and this is where it's a fantastic skill with the Keen Eye skill, is it cuts through this. So you are instantly hitting the formation where other people are missing. So the whole reason why you use Gil is to try and protect your troops by basically hiding for the first 2 rounds, which then extends White Council into rounds 3 and 4 because you've not used any of the stacks of White Council theoretically, because you've not been hit in effect. Meaning you can build your Gandalf like paper with high focus, you take less hits early on, you get increased damage reduction, you try and avoid things like Durin's Blood in round 3 because you will still have a heavy White Council, and even potentially a Bjorn in round 4. You could still run into a White Council if you haven't cleared enough stacks of White Council by hitting the army that includes Gil. That was a long sentence, which I hope made sense. So what Gimli does is he hits through this. So all these skills in round 1, 2 and 3 plus his normal attack all trigger White Council. Another person who has this and can do it quite effectively is King of Men, and I believe Aragon Tier 2 also has Keen Eye in one of his skills, but to literally not have to put it in one individual skill, to have it as a sub-skill for his unique, to me is very powerful. Even as a free-to-play, obviously a Tier 2 commander who can put out so much damage, he will do you 160, 180 damage if you've got him enough refines and things like that. He is a great damage dealer. He's not quite Dane. I know there is a lot of thought around the fact that he could be as good as Dane because of the way that his unique works and things like that, and the way he does damage. But for me, at this moment in time, the jury is still out on that. So sort of really, it's kind of looking back at where we're at with it. So for me, his pure damage and his unique, obviously, affecting the formation like that is fantastic. One thing I will say while I'm kind of talking through the way formations interact is because of the way Sauron now works, and I do need to test this, so this is literally just theory, and this is before I go into gear. If anyone could send me a battle report which shows this, it'd be great. If anyone could send me a battle report that doesn't show this, it'd also be great just to disprove it. And I will tag it in the comments afterwards to make sure that this information is correct. But from a theory craft standpoint, because I'm not in season at the moment, I talk about this in every video, I really do. So Sauron is the big change, I think, to the 2.5, 2.2, whatever you want to call it, meta. And the fact that the Deceiver's Madness no longer goes off pre-battle, meaning that people have slowed the Saurons down, yada, 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 yada. But he is still very meta, and it's because of skills like this. So attack, defense, and focus on 3 enemy commanders, 15% effect modified by focus. That is a -15. At level 10, this happens to all 4 formations, so everyone in the formation is going to get this stat reduction. Now, I'm not saying that you would, because this is very rare that you'd run into this, because they're quite interchangeable from an NRP perspective. So people seem to either use Gil, Gandalf the White, Sauron, and Dane, which I'm still not completely concluding that is the meta, but it would affect that formation quite significantly. If you run into a formation without the Sauron and say a Bjorn, or if you run into a formation with the Sauron and no Gil, it doesn't matter so much. However, from a roleplay perspective, also matters if you ran into a Sauron Undying formation, for example. So Sauron, Undying, and Witch King, probably your worst nightmare for what you're trying to do with your Gimli. So theory crafting this out, he needs over 50 focus for this to trigger his keen eye skill. This is why it said here you need 50 focus to generate the keen eye, which is one of the great reasons why he's so good, because you're cutting through the evasion, right? Sauron and Witch King, to a degree, both debuff your focus stat. Now, they will both be quicker than you. That debuff will happen before you act. What I would be interested to know is if that debuff happens, if it actually takes away your keen eye skill, which I suspect it probably would if you're also fighting a Gil or an Undying with the evasion. Or, to be honest, a Boromir or a Hergon. But the two main ones really are Gil and the Undying. If that's the case, this is a great way of reducing the effect of Gimli by making sure that you debuff him below 50. Now, as a... how can you do it? So, with your gear as a damage dealer, can you kind of counter that fact without cutting into your formation too much? And the answer, I think, is yes, to a degree, without causing yourself too much harm. So, for me, if I'm running this as purely damage, I'm looking for the most attack I can get, getting up to about 250. So if I get debuffed by a Sauron, I'm still around the 200 mark. Ideally, if I can get hold of it, want some unit defense on there, because I want him to be able to tank. If you really want, there's a School of Thought now where you can get a little bit of command, but I'm not going down that route yet, because I need to see more stuff on it. So you're looking for the most attack you can get, and then on your weapon and your accessory, you are looking for the most damage you can get. Now, the Axe of Khazad-dûm is the most damage you can get. If you're looking for attack and damage on an item, the Palantir of Ulthunc is the best item that you need for attack and damage on a accessory. The other handy thing about this is it does give you the 6 focus you need at level 50 to get over 54. So you're over 50. At level 50, it gets you over it. Now, to me, with Gimli, you're likely to be fighting from level 40. So with this stat not going up to near 50 beforehand, there is an argument that you could run something like the Blazing Tongue on there, so that your focus stat is high enough, early enough. The other thing that I tend to do on him as well, and I'm not saying definitely do it, is I might run the Drums of Barad-dûr, because there is more focus. Now, at this point, if I get debuffed by the percentage of what Witch King and Sauron can do, I'm still just over 50 focus. Now, all this kind of stuff's interchangeable, so you could potentially use a golden skin here, and a golden skin would also give you an amount of attack and some focus. You're losing some unit defense, but it will help you stay above 50 if you need to. If that is a thing, I do need to confirm that, but in principle it works. Just saying. So I think there is a little caveat to making sure that at level 40 he has enough focus to be over that 50 threshold for his unique, if you're using him for that reason, which I think is quite sensible. He is also a dwarf, so he is very slow. The problem with a slow dwarf is that you can be hit by Sauron's madness. So if I go into here, this is just an example, by the way, in round 3, Sauron acts before you with Lord of Gifts. He's hitting 2 formations and has a 30% chance to inflict madness. So if you run the 2 dwarfs together, for example, in round 3, there is a distinct chance that he's going to almost get one of you with madness. And again in round 6. So he's always got this bonus on the dwarfs whereby he's got the potential for madness in them. If he is slow enough, he can also madness Bjorn for Skin Changer in round 4. But that is a different conversation, not for this video. So it's just something to look out for. I'm not saying build your formation against this. But again, it's another thing to say that Sauron's pretty OP. That's after the fact that he's also got a chance to stun on the same round. So there's a chance that he's going to mess with at least one of your dwarfs in one way or another. Although that sounds a little bit wrong, but there's a very distinct chance that could happen. Anyway, so from a gear perspective, that's kind of what I would do. Now, my problem with this is that then you've dropped the attack, and you do still need to be around that 240-ish attack. So if I was running this, I would probably run a chess piece with attack. Even if it was perps, I think this is a great thing for perps, by the way. With plus 15 attack, I would probably run something like a golden skin, or I can't bring myself to run the Berserker's Merriment because it's like a little naked dwarf running around. But in fairness, you could probably run something like that just to make sure your attack's high enough. Or use some sub effects, which are like Sharp Blade, for example, so you can get a little bit of plus attack on there. Just some options. Talking of the skill effects on your damage dealer, in this case, which is Gimli, I have started to really like this set as a defensive set because there's so much Stone of Madness around now. It's quite nice, but it wouldn't be my first choice. So I do quite like with the way that Sauron is now debuffing. I do like Sharp Blade. Might is my personal favourite. If you can get hold of it, just run it. That's fine. Another defensive set, I quite like Fortitude because I think you're just taking a lot less physical damage. Physical damage is still the meta, even though Saruman is up there now. So there is an argument that this isn't as important as what it was before. I don't like Warcry in general, because of the sort of evasion that's coming through now from the Gills and the Undyings. However, for Gimli with his focus and things like that, it's probably not actually a bad set for Gimli. So you're getting a really heavy hit on the first Durin's Blood. You shouldn't really need evasive action so much. Perseverance I like because I think it's very useful, and that increased damage into later rounds when you're getting your bigger Durin's Bloods and things like that is quite nice. And I do like Divide and Conquer as well. And if it was Gale, I'd be using Siege Ladder. So that's kind of talking through the set effects. I think now that there's a lot of two-piece set effects, I think it's very good. And that's kind of everything in a nutshell with Gimli, I think. Like I say, from a formation point of view, he doesn't necessarily interact with everyone in the formation in a synergy type role. I mean, he works with a Gandalf the White, for example, with White Rider, because of this kind of plus 25% damage first 3 rounds, particularly with his unique into 4 rounds. He is probably arguably in this new evasion sort of style of meta that seems to be coming through for now at least, probably the biggest benefactor from a White Rider. So I think that's quite a nice synergy. The other one, I think, is one of the Sauron skills from memory. Yes, damage received by the enemy, but that's in general. So it's kind of that benefits everyone to a degree. But I think he is one of the people who benefits the most from White Rider, with his unique. So he is unique in his own way, I guess. But for a tier 2, as a potential free to play option, bear in mind that tier 2 items now are a lot cheaper than what they used to be. Just because of the simple fact that you now get 70 points for a tier 2 at this level rather than 30, I think it's, they're a lot more of a viable option now. And with the way they've changed the Ascension rule, so you can use 40 tier 3 vouchers from any commander, I think it's very easy to ascend, and he's up there in those top 3 or 4 damage dealers for me. But yeah, with that, I didn't go into his outfit. I nearly finished without going into it. His Zenith outfit's also pretty cool. I mean, he's a bit gold for me, but it's pretty cool. I don't know why he's got gold and kind of like a green cape on, but as far as things go, it looks pretty cool. And you definitely see him sticking out in the middle of a battle and you like that. So yeah, as always with these things, look, trust your own judgment, try things out, try him in different formations, try different commanders. He does synergize well with dwarves and from the bloodline point of view, and he also synergizes well with anyone that you want to just cause a lot of pain with, to be honest. So if in doubt, always follow your nose.